Hello everyone, this is Eugene Fine speaking, and welcome back to this 3-part series where I talk about anime series at certain extremes. In this second part, I have a little surprise for you guys. Today, I'll be talking about my top 10 favorite anime honorable mentions. Now this title might seem kind of confusing, so let me explain. Basically, these are anime series that I absolutely enjoyed, but didn't quite make it into my top 10 list. But even so, I really wanted to talk about these because I feel bad for leaving them out. At the same time, this would give you guys more suggestions of anime that you might want to watch. Just to let you guys know beforehand, there will be 18 anime in this list. The big difference of this video compared to the others is that this list is not ranked in a countdown or arranged in any particular order. That's because I wanted to place the selections in a way that seems interesting. Plus, I haven't actually placed these anime series in a countdown yet. So note that these anime may not necessarily be in my top 28. They are just anime series that I really enjoy and really want to talk about. Of course, some of you guys might be unsatisfied with some of the choices that I made. And to that, in the great words of Arcada of Glass Reflection,
make your own list.
And now, strap yourselves for a rather long video as I talk about my top 10 favorite anime honorable mentions. And let us start off by first bringing justice to this corrupted world. Akame Ga Kill. Oh boy, I'm probably triggering a lot of you already, and we've only just started. But before you start disliking this video, just hear me out, okay? For a while, I have always wanted to watch this anime because I kept hearing the name over and over again back in 2014. And right from the start, I loved what I saw. The character designs, the art style, the animation, especially during the action scenes, and the presentation of gore were all astounding. At one point, I even stated that these were some of the best character designs I have ever seen. But despite the action and gore the anime is more known for, my favorite moments in the entire anime are when it gets emotional, and holy crap does this anime know how to bring in the emotions. Another tactic this anime uses that I absolutely love was its switch in perspective between the protagonist group and the antagonist group. That way it works in favor of the anime for developing the characters both good and bad. Now of course, I did find issues with the anime, notably towards the end where most people too found it to be the main problem, being too rushed and somewhat of a mess. But even with that, the anime redeems itself almost instantly with the final major battle in the last episode. From what I've heard, many people also had problems with many characters being killed off for no important reason. And honestly, I can see how people would find it infuriating to see their beloved characters die like that. But for me personally, it did not detract from the experience I've had watching this anime. It was really engaging and the final battle just made it all worth the while. So unless you have an issue with highly followed characters having the possibility of being killed, I definitely highly recommend this anime to you guys. Alright, that last one might have caused quite the commotion, but I'm sure we can all agree on this next one. Cowboy Bebop. The one anime many would consider a true classic. And what made me finally watch it? Why, none other than Arcada from Glass Reflection, placing this anime as one of 5 must-watch anime before you die. And I can totally see why. First off, the animation. Are you serious? 1998 and we got this? What the hell, Sunrise? Some of the stuff we got today can't even match this quality. Along with that, the anime has the characteristic of having single episodes that stand out and make an impact. Yes, there is an overarching story involving the main characters, but it didn't really matter. That's because I loved this anime right from the very first episode. Most of them, if not all of them, were really exhilarating and intriguing. And speaking of characters, I love the main cast of the Bebop crew. Throughout the anime, they get several episodes dealing with their backstories and they become really well developed. The biggest one of course is of our main character, Spike Spiegel, and that is when the anime truly shines. But then of course, even this classic has some flaws, particularly in several of its later episodes. I'm talking about the single standalone episodes whereby the later ones never seemed as good as the earlier ones. But I'm only talking about a few, such as the one dealing with a computer hacker of some sort. But even so, this anime as a whole was freaking awesome. The only possible reason I can see people not enjoying it is if they don't like classical style anime. So for the rest of you, if you are looking for a blast from the past, you have definitely got to check this one out. Now, if Cowboy Bebop is a work of art, This next one is a stroke of genius. Durarara. Seriously, if I don't even mention this as an honorable mention, I am just not being honest with myself. I know I've said it a couple of times in my videos, but I'll say it again. I absolutely love Durarara, and the biggest reason that just won me over was its script writing. Whoever wrote the story or drew the manga for this was a genius. I just love the way the anime constantly changes perspective from one character to another. And the next best thing comes when you find that all of these events are connected in one way or another. Being able to do that takes some serious intelligence. And of course, since I mentioned we get to view many characters from their perspective, it is a major advantage for abundant character development. By the end of it all, you will more than likely be very familiar with these characters. So since I like this anime so much, you might be wondering why it isn't in my top 10. And that's mainly due to the second half of season 1. Here, some of the things that happen don't really make sense, especially on how the dollars became so active at one point, unlike any other time in the anime. But still, the anime has time to redeem itself. At this current moment, I am up to Durarara X210. That means I am only 12 episodes left before I complete the series, and since 10 left off hanging, and I have no clue why it's to come, I can't fairly judge it yet. But the second season has been shaping up brilliantly thus far, and I have confidence Durarara can easily make it into my top 10 list. Now of course, this is an anime that requires you to pay really close attention to everything that goes on in order to fully enjoy it. If you don't like that, I can understand, but for real, you have to check this anime out. It is awesome. With the right mix of music and art, and you'll end up with the next one. EF Tales. By that, I mean both memories and melodies. Now, to be perfectly honest, I haven't seen this one in ages, and I can barely remember all of the details. However, if there is one thing I'm certain of, is that I really love this anime. First and foremost, this anime is beautiful, both visually and audially. As always, it is not hard to spot the unique ways of shaft and how the camera moves around everywhere. And not only that, the studio did a really good job with the art style, and it was all really beautiful. But ultimately, its best aspect is its story, or more appropriately, stories. Throughout the course of 2 seasons, we basically focus on 4 separate stories, each dealing with different main characters. My personal favorite is the one dealing with Chihiro and Renji. What these stories have in common is that they are all really well told and really touching. A main method used to facilitate this is how the anime is very dialogue heavy at times. Once again, another signature of Shaft. And while I admit its dialogue heavy nature can get a bit tedious, and actually an aspect I find as an issue, it actually works really well for this anime. I don't know, it's just the feeling of a work of art. There is another issue, and that has to do with the use of supernatural elements, aka spirits and stuff. But once again, it feels like those fit in the anime so well, and it is used in a rather logical manner. Other than that, I didn't really find any major flaws in the anime. In fact, this anime was supposed to be in my top 10, but it got knocked out because there are some others that were better. But regardless, this anime is just beautiful and has really impactful stories, and if you don't mind shedding some tears, definitely go check this one out. Speaking of anime that almost made it, here comes the next one. Kimi ga Nozomu Eien, what I can only describe as a forgotten gem. Nowadays, I don't even hear anybody talking about this anime, but it is definitely one that is held dearly in my heart. Considering how I don't particularly fancy drama, you know it's doing a good job if it's in my honorable mentions. And the main factor for that is how the anime presents its story. Between 2 episodes, it was quite obvious that there was a huge jump in time. The anime then uses a flashback method to fill in on what has happened between the jump, and through that, we get to understand the characters little by little. What's even more relieving is that the characters become more likable than what we might initially think. If I had to describe this anime, it would be something like School Days, but with much better characters. All, or at least most of the actions the characters make, seem very realistic and it seems to be of good intentions. It makes you support or even sympathize with them as the anime goes. And at the end of it all, it was a very satisfying and at the same time touching conclusion. While the animation done by Studio Fantasia isn't really anything special, the fact that this is the only anime I've seen by them makes them the underdog of this list. I guess the reason this anime didn't make it to my top 10 is because of the type of story it tells. Once again, there were several ones that did it better. But nonetheless, this is a forgotten piece that should deserve more mention. If you are looking for a good drama anime, I highly recommend this one. Well guys, are you ready? Cause I sure can't wait to talk about this next one. Kokoro Connect. Silverlink, you completely surprised me with this one. I've mentioned this anime a few times, but if you can't tell, I absolutely adore this anime. It is, without a doubt, the anime that gives the most development to its main characters. I even quoted by the end of it that if they are still able to get along with each other after all that they've been through, they are definitely the best of friends. The anime is separated into arcs, and in each of them, the 5 main characters get thrown into various dilemmas, and they need to work together to overcome them. It is thanks to these dilemmas that the very personal effects of these characters get revealed, and we understand how they affect them. The anime can be funny when it wants to, and dead serious when it is time. By the way, the character Higurashi Taichi is definitely my favorite, constantly surprising me every freaking time. It is weird to see that this anime is made by Silverlink, when I personally don't find most of their anime being at this caliber. Also, animation-wise, it is pretty decent and some scenes were handled really well, as expected from the studio. However, the biggest downside of this anime that brought it down was the lack of explanation on the main antagonist, Heartseed. With him being a primary factor to the anime, I wanted to know more about the character. But even with that, Kokoro Connect is still an anime that treats its characters with the utmost respect, and I repeat, cannot recommend this anime enough. Okay, let's put aside the serious stuff for now and just relax with this next one. Tamako Market. This is another hidden gem made by none other than the well-acclaimed Kyoto Animation. The reason I found out about this anime was because Misty Connexia mentioned it in one of his countdowns, and I must say, I am so glad I got to it. In fact, I found myself enjoying the anime so much, it got me to subscribe to Misty Connexia. If you couldn't tell from my introductory line, this anime is a casual anime series, meaning it lacks an overarching story and much dramatic tension. While I find myself really enjoying these kinds of anime, Tamako Market surpasses any that I've seen before. I guess its strongest aspect would be its pacing. Throughout only 12 episodes, it was able to cover so much that I was able to familiarize myself with most of the characters. Not only that, the anime knows how to please its audience, being very funny at times and also just freaking adorable. Episode 3 was definitely my favorite. By the end of it, I was actually left speechless with how cute and touching it was. Actually, to be precise, almost every episode made me felt that way. And I've got to talk about Dera Mochiyaki, or Mochi Matsui. This fluffy bastard was a real treat, being so quirky and funny. He just brings a good charm to the anime. And let's not forget about the animation, which once again is done spectacularly by Kyoto Animation. So honestly, there really isn't much to fault this anime for. The only complaint I have is that it was too short. There are still some things that could be covered by the anime. Plus, I just really enjoy the series, so I really wish there is more. But for now, if you are looking for a casual anime series, this one would be my #1 recommendation. Speaking of quality animation, let's get straight to the best first. Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but I am a huge fan of the Fate series. Ever since I watched the 2006 Fate Stay Night, I've been in love with the concept of this franchise, and after finishing Unlimited Blade Works just recently, my love for it just got bigger. First, and holy Jesus, is the animation absolutely phenomenal. Seriously, you couldn't hate on UFO Table when they create animation as brilliant as this. Also, another major advantage this anime has over the 2006 one is its characters. Here, the characters show more expression, in contrast with the mostly stoic nature in 2006. So overall, they are just so much more fun and enjoyable to watch. Finally, let's not forget about the story. That twist in this Unlimited Blade Works route caught me by complete surprise and was definitely the highlight of the show. And how can I forget UFO Table's effort in putting in an epilogue episode? That is probably the best remark UBW has over the 2006 version. And I was literally screaming when a character from an alternate Fate adaptation showed up on screen. I won't spoil who it is, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. Now of course, many people would say that it is not worth watching the 2006 version because this one exists. But personally, I don't really agree with that. That's because UW is just one of 3 alternate routes from the original Fate Stay Night visual novel. The 2006 version follows the Fate route. So while I agree that UBW is much better than the other one, there are several things that were never covered, and more importantly, some characters become seriously neglected because of this. So I would still recommend you guys to check out both series, and preferably start with the 2006 one so that it gets better after. If you don't want to do that, it's perfectly fine, but whatever the case, definitely check out Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. We continue on the path of magic, onto something that really should be watched. Magi. And I was wondering why my friends kept asking me to watch this. To this day, Magi remains as one of 2 anime I would introduce to newcomers as a gateway anime. And for good reason, because Magi is what I consider to be the most important anime I have ever seen. It covers many realistic themes of the world, dealing with human nature and the consequences of conflict. It makes a point that conflict will only lead to more conflict. So in truth, people can actually learn something from this anime. Of course, its themes make a very good setup, and the stories that are told are no less exhilarating. Magi is one of those anime with a huge cast of characters, so of course, it might be difficult to keep track on all of them. However, the anime does a really good job focusing on the great moments, and our 3 main characters all have really good development. Now add that up with the excellent animation by A1 Pictures, and it just got even better. I tell you, some of these action scenes are amazing, and you just can't take your eyes off the screen. So overall, Magi is an anime that stands out with its concept. The biggest reason why it is not in my top 10 is because it is vastly incomplete. Despite all it has to offer, there are still many more things that need to be discovered and taken care of. Just to be clear, I've only seen the first 2 seasons, so I'm not sure what happened in the 3rd one, but even so, this anime has its values, and if anything at all, you should definitely watch Magi. If you're looking for some more insane, over-the-top action scenes, then look no further than this next one. Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. This was the moment Gainax surprised the heck out of me. I've heard about this anime forever, and it's one that is highly acclaimed by the anime community. But it wasn't until I finished its supposed descendant, Kill la Kill, that I really wanted to find out what this is all about. And I was definitely not disappointed at all. In fact, I was thoroughly impressed. Now normally, an anime of this sort isn't really to my liking, because seriously, there are many things in this anime that are highly illogical and don't make a goddamn bit of sense in the real world. However, this anime is not just some wacky, action-packed visual spectacle without any substance. Like Kill la Kill, the story is really intelligently designed, and things seem to connect to one another. When you have that, I'm sold, baby! And just top it up with the amazing animation by Gainax, and it's hard not to enjoy this anime. Oh yeah, and the characters? The anime even treat them with so much respect, giving them so much personality and developing them. And finally, this anime is probably the most heart-pumping and adrenaline-rushing anime I have ever seen. With every successive episode, it just gets more awesome, and awesome, and awesome, and it leads up to a conclusion that just blows everything out of proportion. So to sum it up, it was a lot of fun. But even so, it is no excuse for its highly illogical nature, which pretty much prevented it from being in my top 10. Still, it is one heck of an anime that you definitely need to watch if you want to have a real good time. Right then, let's put aside all the craziness and get back to something more realistic. Hanasaku Iroha. When it comes to telling simple, ordinary stories, no one does it quite as well as PA Works. Hanasaku Iroha is one of few. The anime is mainly centered in a traditional vacation home, and it focuses on the staff members who work there. As you can see, it is a really simple premise. However, the anime does it so that even this simplicity can become something enjoyable and significant. A lot of things that happen in the anime can be really relatable, and we may even learn something from these events. The qualities can be attributed to the characters, almost all of which are given a lot of development. Some episodes have even been dedicated to focus on specific characters, making us understand them even more. And I've got to say, Matsumae Ohana as the main character was an excellent idea. She is very interesting to watch and is definitely a huge contributor to the story's progress. In my honest opinion, she is one of the biggest reasons why this anime is so good. And then we have the animation by PA Works, which is to be expected after seeing several of their other works. In other words, it is really well done. The same goes for the other visual components such as the character designs and the art style. Overall, the anime just looks absolutely beautiful. Now of course, the anime does have the tendency to be overly dramatic at times, and that can be kind of a setback. Also, the anime seems like it could continue, and there are aspects that could be explored in much greater detail. Basically, this anime could really make do with a second season. Still, what we have gotten so far is a really well told story, and I highly recommend you guys to check this out. And now, let's have some more beautiful things, only this time with music. Shigatsu wa Kimi no Uso. This was the big talk back in 2015. So I knew eventually I was going to have to get to this, and I must say, the thing that surprised me the most was that this was made by A1 Pictures. How? This looked nothing like what A1 Pictures have done before, most notably the character designs, but I can see how that is possible. The anime is beautiful, both in how it looks and how it sounds. Being an anime about music, the sound actually plays a crucial part and it adds to the aesthetics of the anime. And as for the visuals, this is probably one of A1 Pictures' most beautifully animated anime ever made. That aside, the story too is something special. Our two main characters of the story, Arima Kosei and Ayuzono Kaori, show one of the most interesting relationships in the anime, and the story develops this relationship to help them overcome the obstacles in the field of music. The supporting characters too are given some development as they all have some involvement with the main characters. The anime is mostly based on drama, but it is because the characters are so interesting that it's easy to get attached to them. If I may add, it has one of the most touching stories in anime I have ever seen. And as if this anime couldn't get any more beautiful, just you wait till the final episode that would leave you in a trance. But despite all that, I do find issues. The biggest one being the presence of certain romantic tensions. Sometimes I just want to focus on the music, but then I am constantly bashed with these and it gets kind of irritating. Not only that, I didn't really like how some of the supporting characters were completely sidelined at some point in the anime. But regardless, the anime as a whole is just a really beautiful presentation. I can see why it got so much attention, and I hope you guys do so as well. And now, we move from sadness to thrill. Steins Gate. White Fox has appeared again on this list. Only this time, I'm sure everyone can agree on this choice. The immensely positive reviews given to this anime meant that eventually, I was gonna have to check it out. But the first thing I must get out of the way, and I've mentioned this before, I am very skeptical when it comes to the concept of time travel. Now, I won't go into detail because I've talked about this before, so seeing an anime about time travel appearing in this list seems like the most surprising thing ever. But that's because this anime presented its method of time travel in a way that is very reasonable and actually makes sense. To be able to do that definitely makes Steins Gate worth mentioning. But the story has a surprisingly small scope, which never ventures very far away from the secret lab of our main characters. But despite that, the anime has one element that is easily its strongest weapon: thrill. This anime is intense, and the use of suspense is done very well, keeping the audience constantly at the edge of their seats. Facilitating that is the exploration of our characters. The anime makes it so that you would feel connected with them whether they may be main or supporting, and knowing the fact that these characters could potentially be in danger just adds to the tension. Now once again, the animation by White Fox is great, but even more so, everything in this anime looks so much more refined than in Akame Ga Kill, making it their best effort in the visual aspects. If there's one thing that I could fault this anime for, it would be the inclusion of that freaking time machine. And that's where my problems with time travel come into play. But regardless of Steins Gate being so close, I can totally agree with the reviews, and it should be on your priority list as well. Now, we're gonna continue this thrill ride, so strap onto your seats. Psycho Pass. I went into this anime not really expecting anything from it, but what I saw, I cannot forget about it. The first praise I would give this anime would be its willingness to address the obvious flaws in the system that governs its society. And with that, it brings about dilemmas, especially for our main character, Tsunemori Akane. She is without a doubt my favorite character in the anime, as she goes through so much change trying to adapt to her job and the influences of the Sibyl system. That aside, the remaining characters that make up the task force of the Criminal Investigation Division are also very interesting and show considerable teamwork. Well, most of them. One in particular, Kogami Shinya, deserves mention. His relationship with Akane is really unique, and he plays an important role in getting Akane back on track. Now, like Steins Gate, this anime is pretty much a thriller, but it is even more so, especially when we have ourselves a villain who is extremely intimidating. That is added with the amazing animation done by Production IG that gives us a true heart-pumping experience. Now, what I put in this list includes both Season 1 and Season 2, and that may cause some commotion because the second season is known to have ruined Psycho Pass. And to that, I have to say I disagree. While the second season is obviously much inferior to the first one, it wasn't so bad that it ruined my experience. If anything, I was glad because I get to watch more of Psycho Pass. But even disregarding the second season, the first season itself wouldn't have made it to my top 10. And that's because while the anime did explore the secrets of the Sibyl system, it didn't feel like it was enough. There didn't seem like there was a solid resolution to things, and yet I thoroughly enjoyed myself. If you guys want to ignore the second season, that's perfectly fine, but you should definitely give the first season a shot. Well then, I think we're done with the thrill. Or wait, maybe not. Shirobako. This has been one anime I really wanted to check out, especially after it was claimed the best anime of 2015 by several reviewers, particularly Arcada from Glass Reflection and also UTS Anime Reviews, and I myself had confidence that this was possible. That's because this is an anime about the making of anime in studios, so if an anime studio can't even get this right, there is definitely something seriously wrong. But thankfully, the one handling this was none other than PA Works, and I can tell they knew what they were doing, because they didn't slow down one bit at using technical terms that would be used in studios. If you are not familiar with these, it can get very confusing. So I'm actually glad we have Aoi's dolls that help explain what are these studio terms and processes, even though it would still require some sort of knowledge. But even if you are not familiar, this anime is actually really engaging. You kind of get the idea of the stress and tension of the staff members, and that makes you want to know more of what happens. Like Steins Gate, the scope of this anime is very small, not straying off from our focus of Musashino Animation Studios. But once again, this anime is able to take this small scope and make it into something interesting. Now, if there is one complaint I had throughout, it would be the lack of focus on the character Sakaki Shizuka, and I really sympathize with her for what happens in the anime. But the anime just redeemed itself almost at the last moments with the absolutely genius and touching solution. As a result, episode 23 became the moment of significance that was needed to brighten my opinion on Shirobako. Apparently, this anime was supposed to be in my top 10, but some recent additions just managed to knock it out. So of course, it's awesome. And if you do not have any problems with some of the dodgy characteristics I mentioned earlier, definitely check this out. Alright, it's time for action and the spooks. Soul Eater. When it comes to amazing shonen anime that is not ridiculously long, Soul Eater seems to fit that bill so well. I'm not exactly sure how I found this anime, but it is in fact the first anime I watched by Bones, and thus began my eventual love for the studio. Soul Eater is one of the better examples of Bones, and greatly demonstrates what the studio is good at. Being a show that is highly based on action, the animation is key to enjoyment, and while Bones does not have the best animation, they've done an absolutely stellar job with this. Aside from the action, the anime does an excellent job in mixing in a variety of genres. The anime is very funny at times, making me lose my shit. Other times, it can get very serious and intense, and the atmosphere is always well established, and a lot of that is thanks to the characters. While the character designs may seem rather simple and plain, their personalities are not the same. Every one of them are given really in-depth development, and they are all very interesting. Well, except for Excalibur, I guess. Now the biggest reason why this anime is not in my top 10 is the ending. Yes, the also popular ending that actually ruined it for many people. As for me, slightly. But compare that with about 50 episodes of pure enjoyment, that was pretty much nothing. And so seriously, even if you have a problem with unsatisfying endings, you are seriously missing out if you don't watch this. Jeez, is it Halloween already? Cause it's time for some more scary stuff. Higurashi no Naku Koro ni. And if you thought anime couldn't get scary, tell me that after you've watched this. I've known about this anime being its horrific nature for quite some time. However, the reason I ended up watching this was because of its opening themes, which sounded really good when I heard them in countdown videos. Now, to be completely honest, this anime would not have appeared on this list if it wasn't for the second season, or Kai. The first season is where most of the horror prevails, and the anime does a really good job playing with your mind. The method used was very similar to Amagami SS, in that the anime resets itself after a few episodes. And that's fine and all, but something happens at the end of season 1 that doesn't really make sense, and the way it ended didn't help. Then we came into season 2, which can be considered the answering phase. Thanks to that, everything becomes connected, and so much more interesting all of a sudden. Although I would say that its use of supernatural elements isn't completely warmed up to me. Not to mention, some things still don't really make sense even with season 2. And then we have the animation, which could actually be another aspect that brings this anime down. Studio Dean has often been criticized for their subpar animation. While that's not always the case, it clearly shows here. That in itself may affect the experience while watching this anime. But surprisingly, the anime is able to counter that with its simplistic art style, which fits perfectly to create the right atmosphere. Higurashi no Naku Koro ni is able to bring a unique concept into the horror genre and do a really good job with it. And so if you are looking for a good horror mystery adventure, give this a shot. Finally, we ended off with more surprises. Little Busters. And it's about time JC Staff showed up. Very similar to Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, I wanted to watch this anime because of its opening theme. Some of you may find the character designs and settings rather familiar, and that's because the anime was adapted from Ki. Ki Animation consists of a group of visual novels, which a lot of them have been adapted into anime form, such as Air, Canon, and Clannad. What they have in common is their mystical nature and emotional stories. This anime is no different. However, what impresses me about this anime is the scope and amount of detail it puts into its respective characters. In other words, all the main female characters get a lot of development. In fact, I even ended up saying that this is the best Ki visual novel adapted anime I have ever seen. To add on to that, the anime once again shows another characteristic of these anime of being able to get very touching and sad at times, and yet extremely hilarious at other times. For that, I was really enjoying myself. But like Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, this anime would not have made it here if it wasn't for season 2, or Refrain. One thing that I don't particularly like about Ki-derived anime is the use of supernatural elements, particularly spirits. That was no different here. However, there is the truth being told in season 2 that completely changes everything and gives this anime leeway for using those. And at the end of it all, it was a story of true emotion. The animation in the anime is done exceptionally well by JC Staff. It is definitely one of their better attempts at it. And so overall, Little Busters is just an example of Ki Animation telling a really interesting and unique story that I assure you guys is worth the watch. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are some of my top 10 favorite anime honorable mentions. These aren't the only ones that have very high scores, but there are just so many to get to. And these are some of the ones that I really wanted to talk about. So if you are unsatisfied with my choices and you feel like I've left something out, let me know in the comment section below. Now we only have one more part left to go, and I'm sure you already know what it is. This one is definitely going to be my favorite. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and do stay tuned to the next time of whatever I make. Until next time, bye!